The sky over New York was clear that morning, no clouds, no wind, just a calm, blue sky like any other day. Then at exactly 9:14 a.m. the sky broke. Apart, a massive shadow spread across the city. People stopped walking, cars stopped moving, every phone screen went dark for 3 seconds, then lit up again with the same message in every language at once. We come in peace, high above the clouds. A ship the size of a small country hung silently in the air. It made no sound. It had no visible engines. It simply floated there like it belonged in the sky. Within minutes the same ships appeared over London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, and Cairo. 6 ships, 6 cities, 1 message. No missiles were fired, no windows were broken, but every human being on Earth felt the same cold feeling in their chest. Something had changed forever. In an underground bunker beneath Washington, D.C., the President of the United States sat at the head of a long table. Around her sat generals, scientists, and advisors from a dozen countries. The air was thick with tension. Nobody had slept in 2 days. On the big screen, a live feed showed the alien ship above New York. It was calm, unmoving, waiting. "They haven't attacked," said a young scientist named Dr. Elena Cho. She was the head of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Program. "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. We had no defense against something that big." "That's exactly what worries me," said General Marcus Webb. He was an old soldier, gray-haired with sharp eyes that had seen too many wars. He leaned forward, his hands flat on the table. "An enemy who could destroy you but doesn't. That enemy wants something else from you." The room went quiet. "Or," said the president slowly, "they really do come in peace." General Webb didn't answer right away. He looked at the screen, at the silent ship floating above his city. Something about it made his skin crawl. He couldn't explain why. It was just a feeling deep in his gut. The kind of feeling that had kept him alive through 3 wars. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "in my whole career, I never trusted an enemy who smiled before they said what they wanted." 2 hours later, the message changed. Single figure appeared on every screen. On Earth, televisions, phones, computers, even billboards in the street. It was not human. It was tall, thin, with smooth silver skin and large black eyes. It wore no armor, no weapons, just a simple robe the color of deep space. It spoke in a calm, gentle voice, the voice of someone who believed they were doing a kind thing. "People of Earth, my name is Versh Cole. I speak for the Galactic Council, a union of over 300 worlds living in peace and cooperation. We have watched your planet for many years. We have seen your wars, your struggles, and also your strength, your creativity, your hope." The alien paused as if giving humans time to absorb the words. "Today we offer you a place among us. Join the Galactic Council and you will receive knowledge beyond anything you have imagined. Medicine that cures every disease. Technology that ends hunger and poverty. Protection from threats you cannot even see. Threats that exist beyond your solar system. All we ask in return is your trust and your friendship." The screen showed images, beautiful cities on other planets, children laughing, ships traveling faster than light, hospitals with no sickness. It looked like heaven. "You have 30 days to decide." Vershkal continued. We will wait patiently. This choice must be yours, made freely without fear. We hope you will choose to join your galactic family. The message ended. The alien's face disappeared. The world was silent for a moment. Then everyone started talking at once. Across the globe, people reacted in different ways. Some fell to their knees and cried, thanking whatever god they believed in for finally answering their prayers. Others ran into the streets in panic, buying every can of food and bottle of water they could find. Stock markets crashed, then rose again within hours as people realized nothing bad had actually happened. Not yet. In cafes and homes and offices, the same question was on everyone's lips. Should we join them? To most people, the answer seemed obvious: free medicine, no more hunger. Peace between all nations united by a common cause. Why would anyone say no to that? But in that underground bunker in Washington, a much smaller group of people were not so sure. "Play it again," said Dr. Alina Cho. The recording of the alien's message played once more on the big screen. Alina watched closely this time, not listening to the words but studying everything else. The alien's face, its hands, the background behind it. "What are you looking for?" asked General Webb. "I don't know yet," Alina admitted, "but something feels rehearsed, like he said this exact speech before." Webb raised an eyebrow. "You think this isn't the first time they've made this offer?" "I think," Alina said carefully, "that a civilization advanced enough to build a ship the size of Manhattan probably didn't just discover us yesterday. They've been watching us for years, maybe longer. And if they've been traveling the galaxy for centuries, contacting new worlds, we are probably not the first." The room fell silent again. It was a simple thought, but a heavy one. "So where are the others?" Webb asked. "The 300 worlds in this galactic council. Why haven't we heard of them before? Why is this the first contact we've ever had?" Nobody had an answer. That night the president called a private meeting. Only 5 people were in the room this time: herself, General Webb, Dr. Cho, the Secretary of Defense, and an old, quiet man named Robert Hale, who worked for an intelligence agency that officially did not exist. "I want the truth," the president said. "Not politics, not hope, the truth." "Alina, what does the science tell you?" Alina took a deep breath. "The ship above New York is emitting almost no detectable energy signature. That should be impossible. Every engine, every power source we know of gives off some kind of trace, heat, radiation. Something this ship gives off almost nothing. That means their technology isn't just advanced, it's beyond anything in our physics, which means," General Webb added, "if they wanted to fight us, we would lose instantly. No contest. So we should be grateful they're offering peace." The Secretary of Defense said, "We should accept." "Maybe," Alina said. "Or maybe there's a reason. A civilization with weapons that powerful needs our permission at all. If they wanted to take our planet, our resources, anything, why ask? Why wait 30 days? Why not just take it?" The room was silent again. It was Robert Hale, the quiet man, who finally spoke. "Because," he said slowly, "conquest by force creates resistance. Rebellion, war. It's expensive and it's slow, but conquest by consent." He paused. "Conquest by consent is clean, quiet, and it never ends. If you convince people to hand over their world willingly, there's no war to fight. There's no resistance to crush. There's just paperwork. Everyone looked at him. You think this is a trick? The president asked. I think, Robert Hale said, we don't know enough to trust it. And in my experience, when someone offers you everything for almost nothing, you should count your fingers after you shake their hand. The next morning, Robert Hale did something unusual. He went to see an old friend. Her name was Dr. Amara Singh, a retired code breaker who had worked in signals intelligence for 30 years before retiring to a quiet house outside the city. She was in her 70s now, but her mind was still sharp as a blade. Robert, she said, opening her door before he even knocked, I wondered when you'd show up. I've been watching the news. I need your help, Robert said. Off the books. Amara smiled. It had been years since anyone asked her for that. Together, they reviewed the alien speech word by word, sentence by sentence. Amara had spent her career finding hidden patterns in messages, codes within codes, meanings between the lines. She noticed something Robert had missed. Look here, she said, pointing to a section of the transcript. He says join your galactic family, not join us, not become part of our council. Family, that's an emotional word, a word chosen to make people feel safe, feel like they, before they've even agreed to anything. Marketing, Robert muttered. Not just marketing, Amara said. Manipulation. This speech was not written by someone hopping we'd think it over carefully. It was written by someone who wanted us to feel first and think second. She pulled up another section. And here, threats you cannot even see. That's fear. Right after the hope, right after the family talk, he plants fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear that says, you need us to protect you. You are not safe alone. Robert leaned back in his chair. So it's not just an offer. It's designed to make refusal feel dangerous. Exactly, Amara said. Whoever wrote this speech understands human psychology extremely well, maybe too well for a civilization that claims this is their first contact with us. Meanwhile, across the ocean, similar meetings were happening in London, Beijing, and Moscow. Scientists, generals, and leaders from every powerful nation began quietly comparing notes through secure channels. What started as separate, private doubts began to form a pattern. In Beijing, an astrophysicist named Dr. Wei Zhang discovered something troubling. Using old radio telescope data, some going back decades, he found faint, unexplained signals from deep space. Signals that matched the frequency of the alien ship's communication systems. The signals were old, very old. Some dated back over 40 years. They've been listening to us for decades, Dr. Zhang told his government, long before they ever showed themselves. In Moscow, a group of engineers studying the alien ship above their city noticed something strange in its outer design. Small marks, almost like scratches, covered parts of the hull. When they enhanced the images, the marks looked like they had been made by weapons fire, old, damage, poorly repaired. This ship has been in battle before, the engineers reported, and not too long ago. Piece by piece, a picture was forming. The Galactic Council was not some peaceful new visitor stumbling upon Earth by accident. They had been watching, waiting, and preparing for a very long time. And somewhere out there, this peaceful council had fought battles recent enough to leave fresh scars on their ships. 10 days into the 30-day countdown, world leaders gathered not in person but through a secure video call. For the first time since the ships arrived, presidents, prime ministers, and leaders from over 60 nations sat in front of their screens, faces tired and serious. "We need to decide," said the leader of one European nation. "Public opinion is turning fast. People want to accept the offer. They see cured diseases and free technology, and they don't understand why we're hesitating. Because we don't have all the facts," the President of the United States said firmly. "We have generals worried about a ship with battle scars. We have scientists worried about a speech designed to manipulate emotions instead of inform. We have signals suggesting they watched us for decades in secret. This is not simple. This is not safe." "So what do you propose?" asked another leader. "Rejecting an offer like this could be seen as an act of aggression. They could turn those 6 ships into 6 weapons in an instant." Silence fell over the call. Finally, General Webb, sitting quietly behind the president, spoke up. "With respect, sir, if they wanted to destroy us, our answer wouldn't matter. They would have done it already. The fact that they're waiting, that they're asking, tells me something important. They need something from us. That force alone can't get them." "What could that possibly be?" someone asked. "Consent," Robert Hale said, joining the call for the first time. His voice was calm but firm. "They need us to say yes willingly. And I would very much like to know why." By the 20th day, something happened that changed everything. A small research team in Germany, working with an old but powerful radio telescope array, managed to intercept a fragment of alien communication. Not the public message meant for humans, but an internal signal passing between the 6 ships in orbit. It was garbled, incomplete, and took days to partially translate, using pattern-matching software borrowed from cryptography experts around the world. What they found chilled everyone who read it. The fragment contained coordinates, star systems far beyond human knowledge, and beside each set of coordinates was a single word, repeated over and over in the alien language. The translation software wasn't perfect, but the closest human word for it. The word that kept appearing next to those distant star systems was harvested, not allied, not joined, not welcomed. Harvested. Robert Hale sat alone in his office at 3:00 a.m. staring at that word. On his screen, around him, printouts of star charts, alien communications, and old satellite data covered every surface. He had not slept properly in days. He thought about the 6 ships still floating silently above 6 of Earth's greatest cities. Calm, patient, waiting for an answer. He thought about Vershkal's gentle voice, promising peace and family and protection. He thought about the word on his screen. Harvested. His phone rang. It was Dr. Elena Cho. "Robert," she said, her voice tight with urgency, "you need to see this." We cross-referenced those coordinates with our deep space telescopes. Several of those star systems, they used to have planets with signs of civilization, radio signals, light patterns consistent with cities. "Used to?" Robert asked, though he already feared the answer. "Not anymore," Elena said quietly. Every single one of them went dark. No signals, no lights, nothing, like they just stopped existing. Robert closed his eyes. Outside his window, somewhere above the clouds, the alien ship continued its silent watch over the city, patient and calm, waiting for humanity's answer. 30 days. That's what they had said. But now Robert understood something none of them had wanted to admit out loud. This was not a choice between joining a peaceful galactic family or being left alone. This was a choice between two very different fates, and time was running out to figure out which one humanity was actually facing. The next morning, Robert Hale walked into the president's office carrying a single folder. Inside was everything: the battle scars on the ships, the decades of hidden surveillance, the manipulative speech, and now the darkest discovery of all: coordinates of worlds that had once lived and now were silent. He placed the folder on her desk. "Ma'am," he said, "I don't think we've been offered an alliance." The president looked up at him, already sensing the weight of his words. "I think," Robert continued, "we've been offered a countdown. 10 days remained." The folder Robert Hale placed on the president's desk sat there for a long moment before she opened it. Inside were photographs of battle scars on alien hulls, transcripts of a speech built to manipulate fear and hope, and a single word that had come from a broken piece of alien communication. "Harvested." The president read every page twice. When she finally looked up, her face had changed. The hope that had lived there for the past 20 days was gone, replaced by something colder, harder. "Get me every leader on that call." "Again," she said. "Tonight." That night, the same 60 nations connected once more. But this time the mood was different. Nobody talked about free medicine or cured diseases. Nobody mentioned the beautiful cities shown in Vershkal's message. Every face on the screen looked tired, afraid, and serious. The president shared everything: the battle scars, the decades of secret surveillance, the manipulative wording of the speech, and finally the coordinates in the single translated word that had haunted Robert Hale for days. Silence followed. A long, heavy silence. "This could be a mistranslation," said one leader, his voice shaking slightly, as if he wanted to believe his own words. One word pulled from a broken signal. "We're about to reject an offer that could save millions of lives based on one word we're not even sure we translated correctly." "He's right," said another. "What if we're wrong? What if this really is peace and we throw it away out of fear?" Dr. Elena Cho leaned toward her microphone. "I understand the risk of being wrong, but I want everyone to understand the other risk too. If we are right and we say yes anyway, we don't get a second chance. Every world that went dark on those coordinates didn't get a second chance either." The room spread across 60 countries and thousands of miles fell quiet again. Finally, the president spoke. "We have 10 days left. I propose we use every single one of them. Full investigation. Every scientist, every intelligence agency, every resource we have. If there is truth here, we owe it to humanity to find it. And if we find nothing, if this really is just a misunderstanding, then we join gladly and we celebrate together." Every leader agreed. For the first time in history, nations that had been rivals for generations worked side by side, driven by one shared fear and one shared hope. Over the next several days, humanity worked faster and harder than it ever had before. In Germany, the team that intercepted the alien signal worked around the clock, refining their translation software with help from linguists across the world. In Beijing, Dr. Wei Dong expanded his search of old radio telescope data, looking for more clues about what had happened to those silent worlds. In Washington, Robert Hall and Amara Singh studied every word Var Eshkal had spoken, searching for more hidden patterns. And in a quiet lab in Switzerland, something unexpected happened. A young astronomer named Dr. Sophia Reyes was studying the alien ship's hulls using a new kind of deep radar, borrowed from earthquake research. She was looking for structural weaknesses just in case humanity ever needed to know them. Instead, she found something else entirely. Hidden compartments, dozens of them, spread across each ship, shielded in a way that blocked normal scanning methods. Her new radar, using sound waves instead of light or radio, managed to see through the shielding just enough to detect empty space where solid ship material should have been. Cargo holds, she told her team. Massive ones, empty right now, but built for something big. When she shared her findings with the international team, Dr. Alina Cho immediately understood the implication. They didn't bring empty cargo holds to a diplomatic meeting, Alina said. You don't build hidden storage that large unless you're planning to fill it with something, and you don't hide it unless you don't want the people you're visiting to know about it. On the 25th day, 5 days before the deadline, Robert Hale received a message from an old contact, a retired engineer who had once worked on classified satellite projects. The man had been quietly running his own analysis at home using outdated but powerful equipment from his career. I found something, the message said. Meet me not on the phone. Robert drove 2 hours outside the city to a small farmhouse. The old engineer, a man named Thomas Reyes, no relation to Sophia, just a small strange coincidence, greeted him at the door looking pale and nervous. I've been listening to their internal chatter, Thomas said, leading Robert inside. Not the message to us, the signals between the 6 ships themselves. Most of it is encrypted, way beyond what I can crack. But some of it isn't, some of it they didn't bother encrypting because they never expected us to be listening at this level. He showed Robert a series of translated fragments on an old computer screen. Translations were rough, broken in places, but the meaning came through clearly enough. One fragment read, population density confirmed, extraction capacity high. Another read, resistance probability low based on historical pattern. A third, the one that made Robert's blood run cold, read, prepare collection vessels, await consent protocol completion. Consent protocol, Robert whispered. That's what they call it, Thomas said. The 30-day waiting period, it's not a courtesy. It's a procedure, step 1 of a plan. Robert brought the evidence back to the president immediately. Combined with Dr. Ray's discovery of hidden cargo holds and Dr. Zhang's data on the silent worlds, a clear and terrifying picture had formed. The Galactic Council was not offering an alliance. They were following a process, and a process they had clearly used many times before. Watch a world. Learn its people. Deliver a speech designed to create hope and fear at the same time. Wait for consent. Then collect what? The Secretary of Defense asked during the emergency meeting. Resources, technology. What could they possibly want from us that they don't already have with ships and weapons that advanced? Alina Cho had a theory, though she hated saying it out loud. Maybe not resources, she said slowly. Maybe not technology. Maybe us. The room went cold. They're not looking to steal our planet's minerals, Alina continued. A civilization that advanced could mine any asteroid, any dead world, without needing anyone's permission. But people need to agree. That's the one thing you can't just take without cooperation. Not easily, not without a fight that costs you something. You're saying they want us to willingly hand over human beings, General Webb said, his voice flat and cold. I'm saying, Alina said, that's the only thing on this planet valuable enough to explain a 30-day consent protocol and simple enough to explain why every other world on those coordinates went silent right after they agreed to something. With 5 days left, the president called for something unprecedented, a worldwide broadcast from every nation delivered together, sharing everything humanity had discovered. It was a risk. If they were wrong, they would be handing away humanity's one chance at paradise out of paranoia. If they were right and the Galactic Council realized humanity knew the truth, there was no telling how the aliens might react. But the leaders agreed. Humanity deserved the truth, whatever it was, before making the most important decision in its history. That night, screens across the world lit up once more, but this time, instead of various coals, calm alien face, it was the President of the United States standing beside representatives from over 60 nations. People of Earth, she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. 10 days ago, we received an offer that seemed to promise everything we've ever wanted: peace, health, protection. And for many of us, it was tempting to say yes immediately. She paused, letting her words settle. But over the past days, working together as one planet for the first time in human history, we have uncovered troubling evidence. Evidence of battle-scarred ships. Evidence of decades of secret surveillance before they ever revealed themselves. Evidence of hidden cargo holds built for something they never intended to show us. And most troubling of all, evidence connecting their offer to worlds that once had life and now have gone completely silent. Across the planet, billions of people watched in stunned silence. We cannot know with absolute certainty what the Galactic Council truly intends, the President continued. But we owe it to every person on this planet, to every child who will inherit whatever choice we make tonight, to choose caution over blind hope, to protect what we have rather than risk everything on a promise we cannot verify. She took a deep breath. Tonight, on behalf of humanity, we say to the Galactic Council, we thank you for your offer, but we must decline. For a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Then, high above New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, and Cairo, the 6 alien ships, silent for 25 days, finally moved, not toward attack, not yet. They simply turned ever so slightly, as if adjusting their position to look more directly at the cities below them. It was a small movement, but to everyone watching, it felt like a giant slowly opening its eyes far above Earth. Inside the command ship hovering over New York, Vershkal stood in a chamber filled with soft blue light. Around him, other members of the Galactic Council watched the human broadcast through massive viewing screen. For a long moment, nobody spoke. They said no, said a council member finally, her voice filled with disbelief. Her name was Theshavon, an ancient being who had overseen this same process on over 40 different worlds. In her centuries of service, she had never once heard those words. That is impossible, said another council member. No species has ever refused, not once. Not in 300 years of this protocol. Vershkal remained silent, staring at the screen at the recording of the president's calm, firm voice. They found the cargo holds, he said quietly. They intercepted our internal signals. They connected the silent worlds to our coordinates. He turned to face the council. This species is not primitive. We underestimated them. It does not matter what they discovered. Theshavan snapped. Consent was requested. Consent was denied. The protocol is clear on what happens next. The protocol, Vershkal said slowly, was designed for worlds that say yes. We have never needed a plan for a world that says no. The chamber fell into tense debate. Some council members argued for immediate withdrawal, worried that a species clever enough to uncover the truth might also be dangerous enough to cause real problems if provoked. Others argued the opposite, that allowing one world to refuse and simply leaving in peace would set a dangerous example for every other world watching. If Earth is allowed to say no without consequence, Theshavan argued, how long before other worlds learn of it? How long before this entire system falls apart? In the end, after hours of heated discussion, the council reached a decision. Not conquest, not yet, but a warning, a demonstration meant to remind humanity and any other watching world exactly how small they truly were. Send the fleet, Theshavan ordered. Let them see what waits beyond their sky. Let them reconsider their answer before it is too late to change their minds. Back on Earth, the mood was a strain, mixture of pride and terror. In the days following the rejection, something remarkable happened. For the first time in generations, humanity felt united. Nations that had argued over borders and resources for decades now shared information freely, worked together in emergency councils, and prepared together for whatever might come next. In the underground bunker in Washington, General Webb stood before a room of military leaders from over 30 countries, all connected through secure video feeds. We don't know what happens next, he said. Maybe nothing, maybe they simply leave. And this becomes a strange chapter in history books, or maybe. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Maybe this is only the beginning. What do you propose? Asked the general from another nation. I propose, Webb said, that we stop hopping for the best and start preparing for the worst, quietly, without panic. But seriously. He looked around the room at faces from every corner of the globe. If they come back with more than words, I want humanity ready. Together. Nobody argued. 3 days after the rejection, Dr. Aris Cho stood on the roof of a research facility staring up at the alien ship, still floating silently above the city. It hadn't moved since that small, unsettling adjustment. It simply watched, patient as ever. Robert Hale joined her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered one to her silently. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Elena asked, not looking away from the ship. Robert considered the question carefully before answering. "I think," he said slowly, "we made the honest choice. The right choice we won't know for certain until this is over." Elena finally looked at him. "And if they attack? If we're wrong about all of this and they were only trying to help, and now we've ruined everything with our suspicion, then we'll have lost an offer of paradise," Robert admitted. "But if we're right and we had said yes instead—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Elena nodded slowly, understanding. Above them, the alien ship remained motionless, silver and silent against the darkening sky, like a held breath waiting to be released. That night, in bunkers and command centers across the globe, humanity began preparing for something it had never faced before. Not a war between nations, not a conflict over land or resources. War, if it came, for the right to remain free. Scientists began working on new defense technology, combining research that had once been kept secret between rival nations. Military leaders began drawing up plans for a kind of warfare no textbook had ever described. And ordinary people watching the news each night felt something shift inside them, a strange mixture of fear and unity that hadn't existed before those 6 ships arrived. Above the city of New York, Vershkal stood alone in his chamber, staring down at the small blue planet below. "You were warned," he whispered, though no human could hear him. "I hope for your sake that you understood the warning correctly." Behind him, in the depths of space, more ships began to move, not 6 now, many more. A fleet gathering slowly, silently. The darkness beyond Earth's solar system. The countdown had ended. A new one, far more dangerous, had just begun. 7 days after Earth said no, the sky changed again. It began as a rumor, whispered between astronomers who noticed strange readings on their telescopes. Then it became a warning, passed quietly between governments. And finally, on the 8th morning, it became something the entire world could see with its own eyes. Lights, hundreds of them, appearing in the night sky far beyond the 6 ships that already hovered over Earth cities. At first they looked like new stars. But stars did not move. These lights grew brighter, closer, night after night, until even people with no telescope could see them from their backyards. The Galactic Council had sent its fleet in the underground bunker in Washington. General Webb stared at the screen, showing real-time satellite images of the approaching fleet. What had once been 6 ships was now hundreds, spread across the edge of the solar system, moving slowly and deliberately toward Earth. "Numbers?" the president asked her, voice tight. 340 ships confirmed," said a young officer reading from her console. "Sizes vary. Some are small, maybe scout vessels. Others—" she paused, swallowing hard. "Others are bigger than anything we've ever built. One of them alone could be 5 times the size of the original ship over New York." The room was silent except for the quiet hum of machines. "They're not hiding anymore," Robert Hale said, standing near the back of the room. The politeness is over. This is a show of force, or the beginning of an invasion. Someone else added quietly. General Webb turned to face the president. Ma'am, we need to decide right now what kind of world we're going to be when they arrive. A world that begs, or a world that stands. The president looked at the screen at the growing lights in the darkness and took a deep breath. We already made our choice, she said. We said no once. We won't say yes now just because they brought more ships to ask again. Not everyone agreed. Across the world, panic began to spread. In some cities, people gathered outside government buildings demanding their leaders reconsider, demanding they accept the alliance before it was too late. News channels showed crowds holding signs that read, "Say yes and don't risk our children's future." Fear was a powerful thing, and fear was spreading faster than facts. In a small television studio in London, a popular news anchor named Diane Ashford interviewed a nervous government official. The Galactic Council brought hundreds of ships, Diane said. Isn't this exactly the response you should have expected after refusing their generous offer? The official, sweating under the studio lights, tried to explain the evidence. When the battle scars the hidden cargo, holds the silent worlds. But fear does not listen easily to complicated explanations. Fear wants simple answers, and the fleet in the sky was the simplest answer of all. We made them angry, and now we will pay for it. Diane turned to the camera. Tonight, humanity faces the results of a decision made by a handful of leaders. Without a vote, without public input. Was rejecting this offer truly worth the risk we now face? Millions watched, and many wondered the same thing. But not everyone believed the fear. In small towns and large cities, another kind of feeling began to grow alongside the panic. It started quietly in workshops and factories, in laboratories and military bases. It was not fear. It was determination. Word had spread slowly but surely about what the world's scientists had discovered, about the word harvested, about the silent worlds, about cargo holds built for something no one wanted to imagine. And something remarkable happened. Instead of turning against their leaders, in panic, many people began turning toward each other in resolve. In Detroit, an automobile factory that had once built cars switched its production line overnight, following new specifications sent by military engineers. In Seoul, electronics companies began manufacturing communication devices designed to work even if global networks were destroyed. In small villages across India and Africa, local leaders organized emergency shelters and supply stores, preparing their communities for whatever might come. Nobody ordered this to happen. It happened because ordinary people, given the truth, chose not to hide from it. Meanwhile, high above the planet, inside the flagship of the approaching galactic fleet, Desiavan watched Earth grow larger on her viewing screen. Beside her stood Vershkal, quiet and thoughtful as always. Their military communications have increased 300%, reported a council officer monitoring intercepted signals. But we detect no offensive weapon activity, no missile launches, no aggressive positioning. They are not preparing to attack us, Vershkal observed. They are preparing to survive us. Descia Von turned to him, her ancient eyes narrowed. You sound almost impressed. I am, Vershkal admitted. In 300 years I have seen dozens of worlds react to our fleet's arrival. Most surrender within days, terrified by our numbers. Some fight back with weapons hopelessly outdated and are destroyed quickly. But this, he gestured to the screen showing Earth cities lit up with unusual nighttime activity. Factories running, people organizing, leaders coordinating across every nation. This is neither surrender nor foolish resistance, this is preparation. Preparation will not save them, Descia Von said firmly. No amount of unity changes the difference in our technology. When our fleet arrives in full, they will understand the true size of the gap between us. Perhaps, Vershkal said quietly. Or perhaps they understand something we have forgotten. And what is that? Vershkal turned back to the viewing screen, watching the small, determined lights of human civilization far below. That desperation makes for very creative enemies. Back on Earth in a heavily guarded research facility outside Geneva, Dr. Elena Cho led a team of the world's brightest scientists in an effort that had been kept secret from the public, even from most governments, ever since the discovery of the hidden cargo holds using Dr. Sophia Ray's sound-based radar technology. Scientists had begun developing something new, a way to detect the alien ships' shielding weaknesses. It wasn't a weapon, not exactly. It was closer to maps showing exactly where the aliens' advanced technology was strongest and where it might be vulnerable. Their shields work by bending light and most forms of energy. Around the hull, Elena explained to a room full of engineers and physicists from a dozen countries. That's why our radar and most detection methods struggle to see them clearly. But sound waves move differently. Sophia's discovery gave us a window, a small one, into their true structure. She pulled up a detailed image on the main screen showing the internal layout of an alien ship, reconstructed piece by piece from weeks of careful scanning. If we're right, Elena continued, their shielding technology, while incredibly advanced, was never designed to stop physical, low-tech interference. It was built to stop energy weapons, not simple kinetic force. In other words, she paused, looking around the room at the tired but determined faces. They didn't build their defenses to stop something as basic as a bullet, because no species they've ever encountered still relied on something so primitive. A young engineer raised his hand. You're saying our oldest technology might be the key to fighting our newest enemy? I'm saying, Elena said, sometimes the best surprise is being underestimated. While scientists worked in secret laboratories, military leaders across the globe worked just as hard, though their preparations remained far more hidden from public view. General Webb traveled personally to secure facilities across multiple continents, overseeing the construction of Earth's first true planetary defense network. Combination of technologies borrowed from every nation, working together for the first time in history without political rivalry slowing them down. We can't match their firepower ship for ship, Webb explained during a briefing with senior military officers from around the world, but we don't need to. We need to make attacking us expensive, difficult, costly enough that even a civilization with hundreds of ships. Thinks twice. He showed a holographic map of Earth's major cities, each marked with new defensive installations. Every major population center will have layered defense systems, some visible, many hidden underground shelters, connected by tunnels stocked with supplies for months. Detection networks combining our best radar with the sound-based technology Dr. Ray's discovered, and weapon systems designed specifically to target the vulnerabilities Doctor chose. Team identified in their shielding. An officer from another country studied the map carefully. This is an enormous undertaking. How long until it's operational? However long we have, Webb said grimly, which, judging by that fleet in our sky, might not be very long at all. 15 days after the fleet's arrival began, it finally reached its full position, spreading out silently around Earth's orbit like a slow, patient noose. Tightening around the planet, that night Vershkull appeared once more on every screen across the world. His voice, still calm, still gentle, carried a different weight this time. People of Earth, he began, we understand your leaders have chosen to reject our offer of alliance. We respect the difficulty of such decisions, but we ask you to reconsider, not out of threat but out of genuine concern for your future. Images appeared beside him, not of beautiful cities this time, but of the massive fleet surrounding the planet, hundreds of ships gleaming silently in the darkness of space. We have brought this fleet not as an act of war, but as a demonstration of what protection truly means. Varish Cole continued. The threats beyond your solar system are real, and they are far more dangerous than anything your world has faced before. Without the Galactic Council's protection, your world remains vulnerable to forces you cannot see, cannot understand, and cannot survive alone. He paused, his expression softening into something that almost looked like sadness. We offer you 15 more days to reconsider your answer. After that, we will withdraw, and Earth will be left to face the dangers of the galaxy without our protection, a choice your leaders will have made on your behalf. The message ended, but its impact spread like fire through dry grass. Public fear, already high, exploded. Overnight, protests grew larger. Some governments, watching their citizens panic, began quietly reconsidering their position, wondering if defiance was truly worth the risk. Varish Cole described. In the emergency council meeting that followed, tensions ran higher than ever before. He's playing us, Robert Hale said firmly, standing before the assembled world leaders. First hope, then fear, now sadness. Every message follows the same pattern we identified from the very beginning. This isn't concern for our safety. This is a script refined over 300 worlds. But what if he's telling the truth about the real dangers out there? Argued a leader from South America, his voice strained with worry. What if refusing their protection truly does leave us vulnerable to something far worse than them? Then we prepare for that possibility. 2. General Webb said. But we do not hand over our freedom based on fear of a threat we've never seen, offered by beings we already caught, lying to us about their true intentions. The debate raged for hours, some leaders exhausted and frightened by the fleet surrounding their planet began pushing hard for surrender. Others held firm, remembering the evidence that had led them to refuse in the first place. It was Dr. Alina Cho who finally shifted the conversation. "I want to share something," she said quietly, stepping forward. "While preparing our defense strategies, we intercepted another internal alien. Communication. Broken, incomplete, much like before. But this one wasn't about consent, protocols, or extraction plans." She displayed the fragment on the main screen. Rough translations filled with gaps, but clear enough to understand. Fleet fuel reserves declining faster than projected. Extended deployment not sustainable. Beyond 30 days. The room went quiet. "They're bluffing," Alina said. "Or at least exaggerating their patience. Maintaining a fleet this large, this far from their supply lines costs them enormously. That's likely why the original offer included a 30-day deadline in the first place. They can't afford to wait around forever." General Webb nodded slowly, a small, grim smile forming. "So every day we hold out costs them more than it costs us. It would explain why they're pushing so hard for a quick answer," Alina agreed. "Fear and urgency aren't just psychological tools, they might be genuinely necessary for their plan to work at all." Armed with this new understanding, the world leaders reached a unified decision. They would not respond to Vrayishkotal's message, not with panic, not with negotiation. Silence would be their answer, and for the second time in the story of humanity's newest challenge, they turned to their own people. Not with false comfort, but with honesty. That night, a joint statement delivered simultaneously across every nation addressed the growing fear directly. "We understand your fear," the message began, spoken by leaders from every corner of the world, standing together for the first time in human history. "We share it. But fear should not decide humanity's future. Facts should. And the facts we have uncovered suggest an offer built on manipulation, not friendship. We ask for your continued trust and unity as we prepare together for whatever comes next." It was not a promise of safety, it was a promise of honesty. And slowly, day by day, that honesty began to calm the fear that had gripped the world. Protests grew smaller. Volunteers joined defense preparation efforts by the millions. Factories continued their emergency production. Communities continued building shelters and support networks. Humanity, faced with an impossible choice, chose not blind hope, not paralyzing fear, but quiet, determined resolve. High above the planet, watching all of this unfold, Vrayishkotal stood once again beside Thesha Vaughn, studying reports from Earth's continued preparations. "They didn't respond to the deadline," Thesha Vaughn said, frustration clear in her voice. "No surrender, no negotiation. Just silence and continued preparation. They found our fuel weakness," Vrayishkotal said quietly, reviewing the same intercepted signals humanity had uncovered, or deduced it at least. "Clever. Then we have two choices," Thesha Van said. "Retreat, admitting defeat before a species so far beneath us it should be laughable, or attack before our resources decline any further and teach this world the lesson it apparently needs to learn." Vrayishkotal remained silent for a long moment, staring down at the blue planet below, at the small, stubborn lights of human civilization spread across its surface. "In 300 years, he said finally, I have never seen a council fleet forced to choose between retreat and attack by a species this technologically limited. Does that trouble you? Theja Van asked. No, Vershkal said, a strange note in his voice, something almost like respect. It fascinates me. He turned away from the viewing screen, walking slowly toward the chambers. Exit, prepare the fleet for engagement. He said quietly, if words cannot bring them to consent, perhaps a demonstration of true strength will accomplish what diplomacy could not. Behind him, in the depths of the command chamber, alarms began to soften into the low hum of ships preparing for battle. Far below, on the surface of a small, determined planet, humanity continued its quiet preparations, unaware of exactly how close the final countdown truly was. But they were ready as they could be. The galaxy had reacted. Now, Earth would answer. The attack began. Without warning, exactly as everyone feared it would. At 4:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the alien fleet moved. 340 ships spread silently around Earth's orbit for the past 15 days, suddenly came alive with light and motion. Engines that had remained dormant flared to life, formations that had drifted lazily snapped into sharp, deliberate patterns, and within seconds, weapon systems humanity had only theorized about began charging with visible energy. In the underground bunker in Washington, alarms shattered the pre-dawn silence. They're moving, shouted a young officer, her hands flying across her console. All ships full activation. This isn't a drill. General Webb was already awake, already dressed, already moving toward the command center before the alarms finished their first cycle. He had slept in his uniform for the past week, expecting exactly this moment. Position report, he barked, sliding into his chair. Primary fleet forming attack patterns above 6 major cities, the officer replied, her voice tight with controlled fear. Secondary fleet spreading toward orbital positions above every other populated continent. Sir, they're not just targeting the original 6 cities anymore. This is global. On the massive screen before him, red markers bloomed across a map of Earth. Like a spreading infection, each one representing an alien warship moving into position. The president arrived. Moments later, her face pale but composed. Talk to me, General. They've committed, Webb said grimly. No more warnings, no more speeches. This is the real thing. High above the planet, inside the flagship for Ishkal watched Earth's defensive systems activate in response to his fleet's movement. Across his viewing screen, human military networks lit up with sudden, coordinated activity, far more organized than his centuries of experience had led him to expect. Their response time is remarkable, he noted, almost to himself. It changes nothing, Dessia Vaughn said, standing beside him with her hands folded calmly behind her back. Begin with a demonstration. Target their military installations. Only, no civilian casualties, not yet. Let them see the true cost of continued defiance before we escalate further. Faris Cole nodded slowly, though something in his expression remained thoughtful, almost hesitant. He gave the order. Above 6 major cities, 6 ships fired their first shots, beams of blinding white energy tore down from the sky, striking predetermined military targets with terrifying precision. An empty airfield outside London vanished in a flash of light. a decommissioned naval base near Tokyo, crumbled into rubble. Explosions lit up the pre-dawn darkness. Across multiple continents, simultaneously, broadcast instantly to every screen on the planet. The message was clear. This is only a taste. But something unexpected happened next. As the alien ships prepared for a second wave of strikes, their targeting systems suddenly flooded with static. Across every ship in the fleet, sensors that had worked flawlessly for centuries began malfunctioning, confused by interference they had never encountered before. Report, Teshuvon demanded, watching her tactical display fill with chaotic, unreadable data. Unknown interference, a council officer replied, frantically working at his station. Something is disrupting our targeting arrays, multiple frequencies constantly shifting. We've never seen anything like this. Far below, in secret facilities scattered across the globe, Dr. Elena Cho's team activated the technology they had spent weeks developing in complete secrecy. Using knowledge gained from Dr. Sophia Reyes' sound-based radar discovery, combined with Robert Hale's intercepted alien communications, human scientists had reverse-engineered a crude but effective jamming system designed specifically to confuse the aliens' advanced sensors. It's working, Elena said, watching data streams on her own monitors, her voice filled with cautious hope. Their targeting technology wasn't built to handle old-fashioned electronic interference. They've never needed to defend against something this primitive. Confused and temporarily blinded, the alien fleet's second strike missed its intended targets entirely, striking empty fields and abandoned structures instead of the military bases they had aimed for. It was a small victory, but it was humanity's first victory, and it spread through military command centers around the world like wildfire, giving desperate soldiers and exhausted leaders a crucial spark of hope. They can be stopped, General Webb said, watching the reports come in. Not defeated outright, not yet, but stopped, slowed, confused. He turned to the assembled military leaders, connected through secure channels around the world. Initiate Phase 2. All defensive systems, full activation. Across the globe, Earth's hidden defense network came alive. Ground-based weapon systems hastily built over the past weeks by combining technology from every nation began firing coordinated volleys toward the alien ships positioned closest to major population centers. The weapons weren't as powerful as anything the aliens possessed, but they didn't need to be. They only needed to exploit the vulnerabilities Elena's team had identified in the alien shielding. Kinetic weapons, simple solid projectiles fired at extreme velocity, striking precise points identified through weeks of careful scanning. Old technology built for a new purpose. The first projectile struck the underside of a ship hovering above Moscow. The alien shields designed to stop energy-based attacks barely reacted to the raw physical impact. A small section of the hull cracked, then buckled, venting atmosphere into the vacuum of space in a silent, deadly spray. Inside his flagship, Varish Cole felt the ship shudder slightly beneath him as reports of damage began flooding in. Impossible, Desiavon whispered, staring at her screen in disbelief. Their weapons are primitive. How is this happening? Because we assumed primitive meant harmless, Varish Cole said quietly, watching data. Stream showing damage reports from multiple ships across the fleet. We forgot that even simple tools aimed correctly can pierce even the strongest armor. The battle that followed lasted 72 hours, though to everyone involved it felt like an eternity compressed into a single terrifying moment. Across the globe, humanity fought not with the overwhelming power of the Galactic Council's fleet, but with speed, coordination, and desperate creativity. Military strategists who had once planned wars against each other now worked side by side, sharing tactics, resources, and intelligence without hesitation. In the skies above New York, a coordinated strike from 6 different nations' air forces using stealth technology combined from separate classified programs managed to slip past alien sensors still struggling with human jamming interference. They struck a smaller alien vessel directly, using missiles modified with the same kinetic principles that had proven effective against Moscow's attacker. The ship, caught completely off guard, spiraled out of control before crashing harmlessly into the Atlantic Ocean, far from any populated area. It was humanity's first outright destruction of an alien warship, and it would not be the last. In Beijing, engineers worked around the clock, adapting captured alien technology from the wreckage of destroyed scout vessels, learning valuable secrets about their shielding weaknesses with each passing hour. Every new piece of information was shared instantly across the global defense network, allowing humanity's tactics to improve with terrifying speed. They're learning faster than we predicted, a council officer reported nervously to Thea Vaughn, watching as human counterattacks grew increasingly precise and effective. Every engagement, their weapons become more accurate. Every hour, our advantage shrinks. But victory did not come without cost. Explosions lit up skies across the globe. Cities that had never known war within their borders suddenly found themselves scarred by falling debris and desperate defensive strikes. Millions were evacuated into the underground shelters built during the frantic weeks of preparation. Families huddled together in the darkness, listening to the distant sounds of battle raging above them. Soldiers died, civilians died. The cost of resistance was steep, and every leader involved in the decision to reject the Galactic Council's offer felt the weight of every single loss. In the Washington bunker, General Webb watched casualty reports scroll across his screen, his weathered face carved with exhaustion and grief. Beside him, the president stood silently, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Was this worth it? She asked quietly, not really expecting an answer. All of this for a choice we made based on suspicion and broken translations. Robert Hale, standing nearby, answered, "Anyway, we didn't choose this war, ma'am. They did the moment they decided consent was just a formality before collection." He gestured toward the screen where reports of destroyed alien ships mixed with reports of human casualties. We're not fighting for pride, we're fighting for the right to still be asking questions like this 1 years from now. The president said nothing, but she nodded slowly, drawing strength from his words. By the second day of battle, something remarkable began happening within the Galactic Council's fleet itself. Word had spread through subspace communication channels to other worlds. within the Council's vast territory. Worlds that had joined generations ago. Worlds that had long since forgotten what true resistance looked like. A species, small and technologically limited compared to the vast Council, was fighting back and winning, at least in small, stubborn increments, inside the flagship Versh. Call received an urgent communication from the distant Council homeworld, thousands of light-years away. He read it in silence, his expression unreadable, before sharing it with Thija Von. "They're asking us to withdraw," he said quietly. Thija Von's eyes widened in disbelief. "Withdraw? We have not yet deployed our full capabilities. We have barely begun to demonstrate our true strength." "That's precisely their concern," Versh Call explained. "A prolonged conflict against a world this resourceful, watched by every other world within our Council's influence, risks something far more dangerous than losing a single planet's resources." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "It risks inspiring rebellion among the very worlds we already control." Thija Von stared at him, the weight of his words slowly sinking in. "If Earth can resist us," Versh Call continued, "even partially, even at great cost to themselves, other worlds may begin asking why they never tried the same. The consent protocol has functioned successfully for 3 centuries because it relies on despair, on the belief that resistance is impossible. Earth threatens to prove that belief wrong. Despite this pressure from their own leadership, Thija Von refused to accept defeat so easily. She ordered one final massive assault, intending to end humanity's resistance in a single overwhelming strike before the Council's political concerns forced a premature withdrawal. Every remaining ship in the fleet, over 200 vessels, still capable of combat, began converging on a single target. Washington, D.C., the heart of humanity's coordinated resistance. "They're gathering everything," General Webb reported, watching the tactical display with growing alarm. "This isn't a strike anymore. This is everything they have left aimed directly at us." "Options?" the president asked her, voice steady despite the terror evident in her eyes. Alina Cho stepped forward, exhausted but resolute. "We have one more surprise," she said. "Something we've been saving, hoping we wouldn't need it." She explained quickly, using data gathered from every destroyed alien vessel throughout the battle, combined with the original discovery of the ship's hidden cargo holds. Alina's team had identified a critical weakness in the alien fleet's shielding technology, a weakness that could be exploited on a massive scale, but only with a single, precisely coordinated strike. "If we're right," Alina explained, "a synchronized electromagnetic pulse, combined with our kinetic weapon, striking at the exact right moment, could overwhelm their shields across the entire approaching fleet simultaneously. Not destroy them outright, but disable enough of their defensive systems to give our full arsenal a real chance." "And if you're wrong?" General Webb asked. Alina took a deep breath. "Then we've used our last major resource, with nothing left in reserve against a fleet that will still vastly outnumber us." The president looked around the room, at the exhausted, determined faces of the people who had fought alongside her through the most dangerous week in human history. "Do it," she said firmly. "We've come too far to hold anything back now." The final battle began as the alien fleet descended toward Washington, D.C. their combined firepower enough to erase the city from existence in mere moments. If allowed to strike unopposed, humanity's defenses activated in perfect practice coordination. Every nation's military forces, weeks of preparation culminating in this single, desperate moment, worked together as one unified force for the first time in human history. The electromagnetic pulse fired first. Massive wave of energy designed specifically to overwhelm alien shielding systems built to withstand conventional weapons but never tested against something so deliberately unconventional. Across the approaching fleet, shields flickered, weakened, and in many cases failed entirely. Their shields are down, the young officer shouted, watching sensor readings confirm Alina's theory had worked. Multiple ships, shields at zero. Fire everything, General Webb ordered, his voice steady despite the enormous stakes of the moment. Humanity's full arsenal, every weapon developed and refined throughout the desperate week of conflict, unleashed itself upon the vulnerable alien fleet. Missiles, kinetic projectiles, and modified energy weapons struck ship after ship, exploiting the brief window of vulnerability with devastating precision. Inside the flagship, chaos erupted as alarms blared throughout every level of the vessel. Var Eshkol watched in stunned silence as ship after ship within the fleet suffered critical damage, their shields useless against humanity's coordinated assault. This is not possible, Deceivin whispered, watching decades of assumed superiority crumble before her eyes. A species this limited should not be capable of this. Perhaps, Varish Cole said quietly, we were never truly facing a limited species. Perhaps we were simply facing one we never bothered to understand. Within hours, the tide of battle had shifted entirely. What remained of the Galactic Council's fleet, badly damaged and severely reduced in numbers, began a hasty, disorganized retreat, no longer capable of maintaining the overwhelming advantage they had once possessed. Cheers erupted across military command centers worldwide as reports confirmed the retreat. But amid the celebration, exhaustion and grief remained heavy in the air. The cost of victory had been steep. Cities bore the scars of battle. Families mourned those lost in defense of a world that had chosen resistance over surrender. General Webb watched the retreating fleet on his screen, feeling no triumph, only a profound, heavy relief. It's over, he said quietly. For now, Robert Hale added, standing beside him. But we should remember this was never truly about winning a war. It was about proving we could stand it all. 3 days after the retreat, a single ship separated from the fleeing Galactic fleet and slowly approached Earth, broadcasting a request for peaceful communication. After careful verification, humanity's leaders agreed to a final exchange. Varish Cole appeared once more on screens across the world, though his expression carried none of the calm confidence from his earlier messages. He looked, for the first time since his arrival, genuinely humbled. People of Earth, he began, his voice quieter than before. We came believing we understood you completely, based on patterns observed across 300 worlds. We were wrong. Your resistance, your unity, and your resourcefulness in the face of overwhelming odds has forced us to reconsider assumptions we have held for centuries. He paused, glancing briefly at something beyond the camera's view. The Galactic Council formally withdraws its fleet from your solar system, effective immediately. We acknowledge your right to determine your own future, free from further interference. Another pause, longer this time. It is rare in the history of our council to encounter a species capable of teaching us something valuable about ourselves. Humanity, despite everything, has done exactly that. The message ended and the remaining alien ships began their slow departure from Earth's orbit, disappearing one by one into the vast darkness of space. In the weeks that followed, humanity began the long process of rebuilding, both physically and emotionally, from the trauma of the brief but devastating war. Cities were repaired. Communities that had lost loved ones mourned together, supported by a new found sense of global unity that had never existed before the crisis began. Dr. Elena Cho stood once more on the rooftop where she and Robert Hale had shared coffee weeks earlier, staring up at a sky now empty of alien ships, filled only with the familiar stars humanity had always known. Robert joined her as he had before, offering a cup of coffee. "Do you think they'll come back?" Elena asked. "Maybe," Robert admitted. "Or maybe word will spread among the stars about a small, stubborn planet that refused to be harvested quietly." He looked up at the sky, a faint, tired smile crossing his face. "Either way, we'll be ready together this time," Elena nodded, finally allowing herself a small, genuine smile of her own. "Earth didn't need the galaxy's help," she said softly, almost to herself. "No," Robert agreed. "The galaxy needed to learn Earth's strength." Above them the stars shone quietly, patient and endless, holding countless untold stories, countless unknown worlds. But for now, at least, Earth remained free, its future uncertain, but entirely its own, shaped not by the promises of distant strangers but by the unbreakable will of its own people, standing together against impossible odds. The war was over. Humanity's true story, forever changed by these events, was only just beginning.